Have you ever stared at the reflection in the mirror and not know who was staring back at you? Saying that the mirror has cracks in the glass. The reflection becomes distortion, making us look at a broken mirror. Have you ever looked at the distorted image and not the reflection, seeing a stranger staring back at you? Were mirrors a portal, a window of deceit, or were we blinded by the reflection in the mirror to say that it was a distraction? Did we mirror society to influence our thoughts, believing that we needed to be accepted with the consequences of being rejected by fear, to say that we were puppets and therefore blinds the eyes that can look but does not see, and the vision is given to the eyes that is unable to look but is able to see? Through the looking glass, there's a ripple of effect, as though a drop of rain had fallen silently on still waters. I used to avoid looking in the mirror, afraid of who I would see staring back at me. Sometimes, the reflection would show different images when I woke up from my nightmares. Only 2 of them made me avoid the mirror when I woke up. When my tears floated around me like rain falling in slow motion, became real tears that blinded my vision upon awakening, and I drowned in my own sea of sorrow. I didn't want to look at myself due to seeing the tears that made me feel like I was losing my mind, or the nightmare of nothing, but hearing the whispers of voices that echoed in different directions and became the song of fear that floated out of my dreams. And the whispers were replaced with too many voices that shouted in my head. I didn't want to look at myself because I knew that I was rocking back and forth with my head buried in between my knees, telling them to stop until I couldn't hear them anymore, and my stare would be blank, looking as though I was a million worlds away. But it was the third shade of myself that became the hardest to understand. The dream with the grey fog was the one that haunted me the most. I was standing on the edge of a cliff and seeing nothing but grey, looking behind me to the flashes of clips of random moments in my life, of me looking in a mirror with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Emptiness replaced the fear, and I learned to be quiet in this dream because I once made the mistake of calling out, and I fell from that cliff and saw the weeping child on the bed of thorns. And by being still in the dark fog of the emptiness, I heard the words, "Invoke her, become her," followed by the chains that locked me up, trapping me in my own nightmare. And when I woke up, it followed me, because I allowed it to. By not using my voice, I invited the shadows in the grey fog, and I would wake up in the body of a vessel while I was trapped in my own mind. And in the reflection, I saw my darkness, my silhouette that had no emotions, the euphoric bliss of feeling nothing, trapping my pain in the chains that had no lock. I thought I was going insane. Not knowing if my sanity was finally letting go of hanging by that thread. Not knowing if I had bipolar with a tsunami of the emotions that exploded throughout my body with nowhere to go. The past was the present and linked as one. The path forward was blurred by the fog, and I started to question whether it meant that my future was not to wake in the world of the living. What is the best treatment for our tears when we ourselves don't even remember the reason? When we bury memories that were painful, it is never forgotten. Some of the events that took place in my life once upon a time was a chapter that I did not wish to talk about. However, according to a psychologist, was not normal because I had no emotion, and therefore suggested that I speak to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist diagnosed my symptoms with the psychosis, severe depression. But what is depression? What is mental illness? A diagnosis that society is familiar with, inclined by the public to doubt the uncertainty by intellectual facts, adjusted to the intelligence of our beliefs. The title that is beneficial to society because of what it represents. A mental health professional. It is someone who has the answers for the changes in our behaviour because they have a doctor's degree in medicine to treat what had been observed. The antipsychotics. The selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, each with different ingredients that possesses proven efficiency in the science of biology. Physiological, psychosis, psychiatric, and psychology. And in the aspects of law, delusions, hallucinations, paranoia, hearing voices, are signs of psychological symptoms. The discipline of psychology is what's being heard by the psychologist. Therefore, the acquisition of information given, in my case, was an observation to diagnose a psychosis that technically has no medical proof. And so the short-term treatment of the medication had the result of me being in relapse. We forget that we have a choice in life. And so being told that we have a mental disorder, it is our choice to believe in whether we do or we don't. As humans, we fear rejection. We mirror society and fabricate another version of ourselves, hiding behind our own virtue because of judgment. Nobody wants to have an uncomfortable change in their normal everyday life. And that's why nobody talks about subjects that is out of the ordinary. Because history shows subjects on the supernatural or paranormal is witchery. It's occult, it's satanic, and results in punishable by society being labelled as crazy or being placed in an institution. It also shows that medication to treat our symptoms is with the same results and being hospitalized. But what we forget are the horror stories and what happened to the people that lost their minds behind the walls of safety. It is a choice in the evolution of humanity that goes beyond our understanding today. And to listen with the intent to reply is someone that is hearing the words, but in their own mind is downloading the information being told, creating visualizations, and will react with their own form of advice, solution, disagreements, judgment, objections, and questioning. And therefore, they fail to understand. And again, to be told that I had depression was easier for me to understand. But if I was told that I was having some form of a spiritual awakening, I don't think I would have believed that, to be honest. To be spiritually enlightened or to have a spiritual awakening is not in the human mind that is telling ourselves that we want to be spiritually awakened. Spiritual awakening has many stages, but what does it actually mean? If I replaced the title spiritual with self-exploration, which simply means someone that is seeking for answers, someone that is seeking for truth within themselves, without any external influences. And so let me remove all labels, all titles, because they have no meaning when it comes down to something that cannot be explained in words. How on earth can you explain the feeling of unconditional love that is felt in our heart space? But what happens when that thought of hearing without judgment comes into perspective? Prior to my own awakening, or perhaps while I was going through my own awakening, I questioned everything in my own mind. I thought everything had a flaw. I questioned everything that came with an opposite, without understanding the meaning of the polarities of transcending, of ascension, of evolution, and seeing through the veil of the illusion of the world that I lived in was acceptance. Seeing that I lived in a world that is balanced. But when we do remove that feeling of fear, which is based upon past insecurities, and thinking about the what ifs, we then understand what it means to let go. I once read a quote that said, "Your destiny is that of a man, and your vows are those of a god." I can only present my own form of understanding is that in our journey through life, we seek for completion or wholeness, and we try to find these things in another being. Perhaps it's not about the destination, maybe it's about the journey, and that the vows of a god is the god or goddess within us, our true authenticity. And when it comes to the virtues of love, vows of kindness, honesty, loyalty, honor, and faith, it is up to us to concrete the action within our own faith. It is unconditional trust without questioning our actions in life. And so without external forces in society, such as social media, the news, friends, family, we learn to then accept ourselves. The duality of oneness, of completion, of wholeness, is overcoming the unbalanced desire for personal power. So when our human mind is not adapt to hearing something that's not in our primary conscious belief, I can only say this. Prior to being told or diagnosed with a mental condition, I wish that somebody had told us that the best treatment for our tears was just to have somebody listen without judgment.